Akatsuki was always a loser. He always comes late to school because he whacked his stick too much at night, losing the energy to wake up. Since his parents are divorced, they hardly have time for him, and his life is a mess. But one day, as he was on his way to school, he gets caught in a terrorist attack that causes a huge explosion. But it accidentally awakens his power, turning him into a monster, and his life changes as he finally learns the truth about the world government. In some unknown place, a very old-looking woman with blue eyes and purple markings on her cheeks sits atop a throne as 5 white-haired children wearing school uniforms stand before her. One of the children, who is a girl, steps up to the throne, and the old woman feeds her a neon lime-colored orb which she was preparing a few moments earlier. In a massive red postal airship named the Zambani, a red-haired girl with blue eyes and similar markings as the old woman before is performing some sort of experiment when she notices something outside the window. A blue-haired woman with glasses who goes by the name Benakawa Ishu is reading a book when she notices dozens of airships chasing theirs and informs the pilot of the airship, about this, who identifies those airships as government inquiry ships. The red-haired girl, whose name is Nakayami, wakes up one of the ship's crew members with dreadlocks, Akashiba, as tries to communicate with the government ships but gets no response. Ishu, who is the leader of the airship, commands to find the nearest dock as they don't want to be caught up in the aerial bombing. Ishu commands Akashiba to get Nakayami to board the smaller aircraft docked inside the airship and head on towards Sentin Island, which is just ahead. Akashiba ejects Nakayami and her aircraft as she flies at full speed towards Sentin Island, and the rest of her crew follows her in their airship. It's a peaceful day on Sentin Island. Takehara Akiyuki panics as he realizes that he's late for school and asks his mother Takehara Fusa if she really called to wake him up. Akiyuki quickly gets ready for school and his mother reminds him to take his lunchbox with him. Akiyuki gets himself some water, but he finds pieces of rust in the water and tells his mother to raise this issue with their landlord. Akiyuki takes his lunchbox and leaves the bigger one, which is supposed to be for his father since he's getting late for school. Turns out that his parents are married but are divorced and live in different places. Akiyuki sneaks out of the house and takes his bicycle, but his bike's chain immediately breaks and he attempts to fix it. His mother notices that he didn't eat his breakfast and did not take his father's lunchbox with him. His mother catches him fixing the chain and hands over the lunchbox to him before he takes it and leaves for school. At some shrine, Nishimura Haru and Teraoka Furuichi practice martial arts in front of some children. All the ugly children laughs at their master while clapping their hands as Haru hands Furuichi's axe back to him in like 5 seconds flat. Furuichi refuses to accept his defeat and tries to act like getting beaten by Haru means nothing. On his way, Akiyuki almost runs over this green and white bunny-like creature called a Nekomata. He then follows the Nekomata and finds a shortcut to his father's home clinic. Akiyuki makes his way to his dad and leaves his bicycle unattended. Haru, Furuichi and Midori find his bicycle and wonder if Akiyuki has stopped to pay a visit to his father. Haru and Furuichi make a bet that if Akiyuki makes it to the school bus on time, then Furuichi owes her a chocolate roll, and if he doesn't then she owes Furuichi a yakisoba roll. Akiyuki enters his father's house and is stunned to see the mess he made as he sleeps peacefully. After lots of trying, he finally manages to wake his father up. He quickly hands over the lunchbox to his father and informs him about the patient who is waiting outside his clinic as he runs off to school. Haru and Furuichi wait in line for the school bus. The white-haired girl from before who ate that lemon-looking thing is also waiting in line to get on the same bus for some reason. Just as Haru is about to lose hope in Akiyuki making it on time, he makes it. Haru wins the bet and Akiyuki gets in line as well. Akiyuki notices how the white-haired girl standing in front of him does not have her armband, which is required to board the bus. The bus conductor asks the girl for her armband, but since she doesn't have one, she's at a loss for words. Akiyuki tries to help her by deliberately dropping his armband so the girl can pick it up. He then comes up with some excuse and smooth talks the conductor before being allowed to get on the bus without his armband. Akiyuki and his friends get curious about the girl. She tries to give the armband back to him, but he tells her to keep it for herself. While on the bus, Akiyuki notices the government inquiry ships in the distance. The military notices some unidentified airships making their way to Sentin Island, which later turns out to be some new models from the northern government, which might result in a possible invasion on the island. The white-haired girl pulls out some unknown device from her bag and hides it in her hands. As the bus reaches the school and all the students get off, Akiyuki notices how the girl he helps is still sitting on the bus, not getting off like everyone else. After Akiyuki also gets off the bus, the girl takes the device and detonates it, resulting in an explosion that completely destroys the bus and kills some students. After the explosion, some weird yellowish rays emerge from the bus, and one of them hits Akiyuki's right arm, which causes a burn on the area where it hits him. The unknown ray enters his veins and makes its way all the way to his hand before completely disappearing. Furuichi and Akiyuki find Haru, who is mostly unharmed but in a state of panic while crying. Furuichi decides to take her to the school's infirmary, but Akiyuki spots the white-haired girl and dashes towards even though his friend warned him. The girl is still alive and struggling to get up. A blue gem forms on the place where the ray hits him and disappears inside his arm. The girl apologizes to Akiyuki for getting him mixed up in her suicidal bombing and introduces herself as Nazuna. She reassures Akiyuki that he'll be fine and touches his forehead, causing a small red gem to emerge from there, and a white mask forms from the red gem and covers Akiyuki's face. The military reaches the school and helps the students while also searching for the reason behind the explosion. Nakayami and her crew almost reach Sentin Island when Nakayami signals to Ishu that she wants to land on the island to have a quick look at what's going on. Ishu tries to stop her, but she does not listen to her. Akiyuki quickly transforms into this white creature with orange and green accents all around. Furuichi and Haru see the monster before them, and the guard tells them to run, but Haru decides to stay behind, since she is worried for Akiyuki. The guard shoots down Akiyuki and Haru hears the words, "I want to live" in Akiyuki's voice, which makes her believe that Akiyuki is alive and is inside the white monster. The ringing of bells fills the sky as the airships from the northern government fly over Sentin Island and begin their attack. The airships drop pods on the city, destroying buildings and killing people in the process. Some pipes then emerge from one of the pods, which then releases steam like a steam locomotive. The bullet wounds on Akiyuki's body almost instantly regenerate, and he gets up. The guard gets scared and threatens to shoot Akiyuki again, but Haru uses her martial arts skills and knocks down the guard, all while Furuichi and another guard are watching. Furuichi asks Haru why she did that to the poor guy, and tries to cover her up by telling the guard about how the white monster just appeared on the bus out of the blue. From the pod, which was emitting steam, a massive purple monster called a human form weapon emerges out. A nearby tank shoots the human form weapon, but it heals itself instantaneously. The human form weapon shoots out a spore from its body and releases a powerful beam, destroying the tank and the school. Furuichi calls Haru over to a safer spot, but Akiyuki holds onto her hand as she tries to leave. The human form weapon shoots one of its green spores again, but this time Akiyuki and Haru almost get caught up in it. The purple human form weapon locks on to Akiyuki and starts attacking him. Furuichi tells Haru to let the monsters fight it out, but she ignores him and chases after them, which really angers him. Akiyuki grabs onto the human form weapon, and it crashes into a building in an attempt to kill Akiyuki, but he flings himself into the air trying to avoid the attack and lands on a riverbank. The human form weapon fires another spore, but this time Akiyuki transforms his right hand into a shield and completely blocks the attack. He then charges towards the human form weapon at full speed and emits some sort of electricity from his hand as he punches his enemy, who is unable to heal the injury this time. Turns out that all of these pods that were dropped by the northern government airships had one of these human form weapons inside them, which absolutely wreak havoc on the island. Akiyuki runs side by side with the human form weapon and jumps onto a water tank, from where he jumps down and throws a punch. Akiyuki then transforms his right hand into a large blade, but gets knocked down. Haru also reaches the scene and stands on a water pipe on which some of the debris falls, resulting her in almost falling to her death, but Akiyuki quickly dashes over and saves her. Nakayami spots the human form weapon and Akiyuki, who she refers to as a Zammed. Haru, while in Akiyuki's hand, tells him to run away, but Akiyuki is dead set on defeating this human form weapon before he does anything else. The human form weapon uses its last spore, which Akiyuki dodges, and he punches the human form weapon with the same electricity in his hands, which immobilizes it and starts forming red stones on the human form weapon's body. Nakayami reaches the riverbank and pierces Akiyuki's hand with a large needle before asking him what a completed Zammed is doing in a place like this. The needle piercing Akiyuki's hand causes the same red stones to form on his body. Nakayami asks Haru if the white monster's original form was a human, to which she replies of course Akiyuki is a human, not a monster. She also starts yelling at her in tears that he isn't dead. Nakayami then tells Akiyuki that the red stone is devouring his body and mentions that if he doesn't want to die to these red stones, then he should come with her. Akiyuki says that he wants to live, which surprises Haru since he is actually alive, and Nakayami immediately undoes the red stones by removing the needle. She also tells Akiyuki that the soul of the human form weapon will be transferred to him, which is the purpose of Zammed. Nakayami then transforms Akiyuki back into his human form and asks Haru if she also heard the voice from the Zammed. She tells her that she will give the spirit she saved to her and to not cry before doing something that makes her collapse. Haru watches as Nakayami carries Akiyuki back to the airship before passing out. Haru then gets woken up by Furuichi, who reaches the riverbank trying to find her. While the Zambani is docked, Nakayami's crew waits for her return. Ishu is pissed off by Nakayami running off despite being told not to. And Akashiba kill time by playing cards. Kaiselji, the airship's mechanic, who has an odd-shaped head, shows off some of the gadgets he got on Sentin Island to Ishu, who is not impressed at all. Hinakamaru and Kobako find the same Nekomata that Akiyuki almost ran over and ask Ishu if they can keep it on the Zambani. Ishu immediately refuses, but the kids keep it with them anyway. Nakayami finally arrives at the dock shortly after while carrying Akiyuki, and with that Zambani prepares for takeoff. While flying, Ishu asks if there are any northern government ships nearby, to which he replies that they're in the clear. She rolls up a fat blunt while complaining about the recent events which have been very troublesome to her. Nakayami takes Akiyuki to her room where she bandages him up and looks after him. She pours some water over the blue gem in his arm and then pierces it with the same stick from before, which causes it to go berserk for a few moments, but she controls it before anything bad happens. Nakayami refers to the blue gem as a Haruko when Akashiba enters her room. He asks Nakayami with surprise if Akiyuki is still alive, to which she says that he's still alive and that the fact that he's come this far means that he won't turn to stone anymore. Nakayami tells Akashiba not to worry and tells him that she's going to rest for a bit. The Nekomata that the kids find on Sentin Island bites Akashiba on his feet. He gets mad, calling it a pig. This angers the kids, who tell him that the Nekomata is not a pig, but rather its name is Rappa. Akashiba calls Rappa a piggy again, which really angers Hinakamaru, who turns around and punches him right in his meat, almost ending his generation. While alone with Akiyuki, Nakayami caresses his hand, and with a sad voice she says how no one even celebrated the birth of this Zammed. Back at Sentin Island, the news report shows that the human form have self-destructed and the danger is finally over, but the island suffered great losses, with the dead and injured count going up to almost 3,000. While in a shelter, Furuichi buys Haru the chocolate roll from their bet earlier. He also mentions that her little sister, Midori, is fine and that her dad will be coming over with her tomorrow. Haru is grateful but mentions with a sad voice how she failed to keep her promise to Akaduki's mother. Furuichi tells Haru that it's not her fault that Akiyuki got on the bus, to which she replies that Akiyuki is still alive. While Russo, Akiyuki's father, has his hands full with so many patients, Fusa comes over to his place. She mentions how Russo's business must be going well since there are a lot of shoes at the entrance. She then asks him for a glass of water. Russo asks Fusa if she has come over to him for the divorce, but she tells him that their son hasn't come home yet and that he was nowhere to be found. Russo starts panicking and rushes to the telephone to call the military about it, but Fusa yells at him saying that the telephones haven't been working since the morning and gets exasperated over him not noticing such a thing. A patient calls over Russo complaining how his son is in pain and he tries to check up on him. This makes Fusa angrily to ask him why he is not worried about his own son. He tells her that there is nothing that he can do right now beside helping others. She angrily tells Russo that their son still might be waiting for them under a pile of rubble, while he is busy saving others. That's why she is going to go and find him with or without his help. A strange man in one of the pods starts eating something weird and blows himself up along with the pod, causing even more damage. In an underground base, Tsukaki informs Commander Tajiro about all the events that had taken place on Sentin Island as they walk up to a large, chained-up Zammed with red stones covering its body. Tsukaki tells Tajiro that Dr. Kanba is waiting for him on the lower floor. Tajiro meets up with the doctor, who has markings similar to Nakayami and the old lady who fed Mizuna the orb. Tajiro tells Kanba that this research facility will transfer to Sentin Island along with the chained Zammed. Dr. Kanba explains to Tajiro what the creature in front of them is calling it Zammed, a Tessex god, and calls him the new sacrificial lamb since he understands the cost in both funds and in lives if the research ends in failure. Kanba makes it seem like Tajiro is only a tool to him that he can use to accomplish his goals. Before leaving, Kanba mentions how he feels sad for her. When Tajiro asks him who he is referring to, Dr. Kanba reveals how a mother and her child disappeared when that chained Zammed was born, and that the Zammed before them looks like a mother protecting her child, possibly hinting at something very disturbing. Elsewhere, while walking around the shelter during nighttime, Haru sees a partially open door, which piques her curiosity. She goes over to the door, opens it, and finds Nezuna lying down on a bed with some wires connected to her left arm that were attached to some large tubes containing a yellowish plasma-looking substance. While Haru is taking a look at her, Nezuna tells Haru that her Zammed is still alive. Sentin Island's commandant gives his report on the recent attacks on the island, stating that the white-haired girl, referring to Nezuna, has died and all they could determine was that she was a follower of Reconnecting. The human form weapons dropped, 6 explosions involving white-haired children, and 2 life forms known as Zammed. Realizing all this bizarre situation, the chief in charge knows Sentin Island can't deal with this without the support of the army. That's why Tajiro is then made in charge of Sentin Island and is referred to as the hero who survived the Battle of Barrador. Tajiro tries to be humble and tells everyone to remember his comrades who gave their lives fighting the earliest human form weapons in the war. He tells the commandant not to despise himself and promises to even sacrifice his life if it results in the completion of their mission. While piloting the Zambani, reports to Ishu that a police airship is following them. Ishu asks about their next destination, which is Shirahama Yard, and orders him to take a shortcut. She also orders to get their cargo in order, but complains that it's too much work and requests her to let Akiyuki help out with work on the airship when he wakes up. While in Nakayami's care, Akiyuki receives some spirit tea from her, which apparently helps in calming down the Haruko inside his right arm. He thanks Nakayami for taking care of him, telling her that he's really alright, and tries to take off the cast on his right arm. But Nakayami immediately stops him. Akiyuki gets pissed off by this and tells her that he is not the Zammed person that she keeps talking about. Akashiba then informs Nakayami that Ishu wants to see her, so she leaves her room and tells Akiyuki not to do anything stupid. Akashiba also asks Nakayami to take Ishu's breakfast to her, and she leaves Akashiba to take care of Akiyuki. At the same time, Haru's father finally arrives at the shelter to come to pick her up and take her home. She asks her father if anyone knew the white-haired girl. Her father replies that he forgot to ask anyone about it. As the 3 of them exit the shelter, they find Russo sitting on a bench with his shoe in his hand. Haru asks him what he's doing here. He replies that he's checking every hospital in hopes of finding his son. He then shows his shoe to Haru, which has its sole coming apart, which shows how much he has walked in it looking for his son. While on the Zambani, Yunbo, who is Hinakamaru's mother and Kobako's adoptive mother, cooks porridge for the ship's crew. Hinakamaru still does not get along with Akiyuki, but Yunbo scolds him for that. Akashiba tells Akiyuki to get ready for some postal service work after he's done eating. On their way to the cockpit, tells Akashiba to take Akiyuki to Ishu to talk to her, whom he describes her as a sweet, raven-haired beauty in glasses. Meanwhile, Nakayami and Ishu get into a heated argument about whether letting Akiyuki to stay on this ship is a good idea or not. Nakayami tells her that letting Zammed run free is not feasible, but Ishu counters by saying that she's not willing to risk the safety of her ship in any way. As Akiyuki is heading to the captain's room, Kobako sees him, so he gives him an extremely heavy box to take to the warehouse. Akiyuki tries to argue, saying he doesn't know where the warehouse is, but he just ignores him while Akiyuki sees and recognizes the Nekomata that almost got run over by him. Seeing his helplessness, Akashiba decides to take Akiyuki around the ship and introduces him to Kaisulji. But that conversation does not go very smoothly. Akiyuki climbs up and reaches the ship's deck, and he sees outside, realizing that Sentin Island is very far away and that going back home is becoming less and less likely with each passing moment. He sighs, calling out Haru's name. Nakayami comes out of the captain's room. Seeing Akiyuki, she tells him to introduce himself to the captain and warns him that if he wants to stay here, he should learn to swallow his pride. As he heads to Ishu's room, she suddenly shows up and introduces herself to Akiyuki. Instead of introducing himself first, he straight up asks Ishu to let him go home. This infuriates Ishu, who immediately punches the balls out of him since he did not even introduce himself, and he didn't even thank Nakayami for saving his life. Akiyuki gets cocky, saying that he didn't even ask her to save his life. This makes Ishu very angry, resulting in her telling him to remove the needle that Nakayami pierced through his hand. Akiyuki does exactly that, saying he is no monster, but his right arm goes berserk. Nakayami yells at him, saying that Zammed attracts human forms and tells him to put pressure on his right arm, but as soon as she says this, a siren in the ship goes off and a northern government airship drops a flying human form weapon, which attacks Zambani. The flying human form uses its tail to grab Akiyuki and absorbs him within its body. Nakayami takes off in the beat kayak that small red ship that she was riding before, and flies towards the human form. She takes her rifle and shoots a needle towards the human form, causing red stones to form on its body. She then hooks the beat kayak into the human form's body and manages to pull out a kaduki from within. She quickly takes him to the beat kayak and flies back as Bazooka Mommy blows up the human form's wing into a million pieces, killing it. Later, back in Nakayami's room, she makes some spirit tea for Akiyuki, while he tells her about his encounter with Nizuna before he turned into an Zammed, saying that she turned him into this monster, while telling him not to worry since he will be okay. Nakayami tells him to keep thinking that way since thinking is the only way to gain symbiosis with Haruko. Akiyuki feels really grateful towards Nakayami since it's the second time she saved his life and drinks the tea without complaining about its smell. Feeling pity for him, Nakayami tells him to write a letter to send to Sentin Island and to get some sleep since he'll be starting his training tomorrow. Meanwhile, back at Sentin Island, Haru goes to Fusa's home and talks to her about how Akiyuki is still alive somewhere. Fusa tells Haru that she thinks the same and tears up. Haru asks her if she can take his armband, saying that she will take the responsibility of returning it to him when he returns. As Haru is leaving, Fusa mentions how Akiyuki is very lucky to have her as his friend, but he has no right to worry her this much. She replies that Russo told him the same thing when she met him earlier, while he was out looking for his son. Russo, back at his place, takes out some really old book while talking to himself about his service during the Battle of Berador. Elsewhere, Tsukaki prepares some reports for Tajiro. He mentions how he has never been to Berador despite having the title the Hero of Berador. The Zammed inside the research facility gets lifted up, and Sakai hands over the report of all the people who were aboard the bus that exploded. She points out how the only person who is missing from the bus is the only son of the doctor who served in Berador, which surprises Tajiro. While Akiyuki gets ready to sleep, Akashiba points out the big scratches on the wall. He mentions how these scratches were in Nakayami's room as well, both caused by a man named Tsunemata Reigio who used to stay on the Zambani. He adds by telling Akiyuki that Reigio was sent over the edge by the Haruko, and the clothes Akiyuki is currently wearing were also Reigio's. Akiyuki asks Akashiba where Reigio is right now, but Akashiba falls asleep almost instantly as he's God's sleepiest soldier. The next morning, a human form weapon user takes control of the weapon and uses its spores to attack Condoral's military. Some airships fly over the battlefield and drop some Zammed-looking mechas called asp suits, which target the human form weapon. The asp suits engage in combat with the human form weapon and give it a very difficult time. The asp suits overwhelm the human form with numbers and turn it into stone by pulling the golden ring off its neck and get the order to capture the user before he self-destructs. The remaining 4 white-haired children take some staffs and red robes out of their lockers and head outside. The children refer to the old lady as Lady Savona, who commands them that their mission is to return a Haruko back to the Great Ruakan. On the Zambani, Nakayami wakes up Akiyuki by kicking his head, but he yells, "Haru, run!" Nakayami informs him that they're going to see Madame Tension for his Zam training. The two of them make their way to a small hatch in the airship, and when Nakayami opens it, tons of smoke from the spirit-calling incense make it hard to breathe. Nakayami makes an offering to Madame Tension in the form of food and informs her that she has brought the Zammed before her. When the smoke dissipates, Akiyuki is shocked by Tension's appearance. Tension tells Akiyuki that his fate has become intertwined with the Zammed and that the Haruko in his right arm will keep him from living as a human ever again, and asks him if he wants to live despite all that. Akiyuki asks Tension if there's a way to remove the Haruko from his arm. Tension replies that the only one who is capable of doing that is Savona, the founder of Ruikanism. Nakayami also reveals how Savona has been missing ever since her exile by the northern government. Upon hearing this, Akiyuki expresses his desire to return to Sentin Island, but Tension asks him if that's what Zammed seeks. Akiyuki is unable to come up with the answer, so Tension gives him a hint by telling him to listen carefully to the Haruko. She then tells Nakayami to begin the drills. After his meeting with Madame Tension, Akashiba and the kids make Akiyuki work like a machine. When Akiyuki asks Nakayami how stamping letters is considered training, she replies by saying that it'll keep him alive. Back on Sentin Island, Haru meets up with Midori and Furuichi at a hilltop where a lot of people are gathered to view the massive Southern Continent Free Zone ship. Haru spots one of her classmates named Shirada who lost both of her parents to the air raid. She tries to talk to her, but Shirada simply tells her there is no point in waiting since they are already dead. Tajiro exits the ship and makes his way down while Haru and Furuichi are mentally exhausted by the start of another war. Akiyuki visits Tenshin again, but is still unable to come up with an answer. Later, he trains again by working on replacing the stamps on undelivered letters as Yunbo tells Akashiba to give Akiyuki a break for dinner. Yunbo feels bad for Akiyuki and takes a stack of letters from him to help him out. Kobako and Hinakameru also join in to help, leaving Akashiba alone at the dinner table, who soon feels bad for Akiruki too and helps out as well. Akiruki starts getting along with the Zambani's crew. But the old hag keeps yapping about some philosophical stuff every time homeboy Akiyuki goes to visit her, confusing him even further. The next day, while helping Kaiselji with some ship maintenance, Akiyuki almost falls off. When Akiruki looks up at the sky, he spots an airship flying over them, which rapidly drops its altitude and throws a smokescreen, blocking Ahm's vision. Ishu advises Ahm not to get upset since Zagend will get him off guard. Seeing this, Nakayami leaves with the beat kayak before Ishu could even order Akashiba to not let Nakayami get close to the Tessek airship in front of them. Akiruki asks Kaiselji if Nakayami knows the people on the Tessek airship. He replies that she does indeed know them and that they're pawns of the northern government that were cast out from their homeland and were scattered across the world. Turns out Zagend is the man who was standing on the deck of the Tessek ship. Nakayami comes back to the Zambani and informs Ishu that Zagend's ship will be dropping anchor at Salantin before asking her for permission to go talk to Zagend. Ishu flat out rejects her request, and when Nakayami keeps insisting, Ishu gets heated and tells Nakayami that she won't let her stay if she wants to talk to Zagend. Ishu tells Nakayami how the Zagend's people betrayed the anti-government army, and they even trafficked humans to make easy money. All the slander gets to Nakayami, and she asks Ishu if she's also included in it since she's also a Tessek. Ishu slaps Nakayami and tells her that she can go to them anytime she wants. Akiyuki knocks on Nakayami's door to let her know that it's time to go see Madame Tenshin and notices the uneasiness on her face. She tells him to ignore it. So, Akiyuki asks her why she takes care of him so much. She replies by saying that the reason for it is that he's a Zammed. As he sits before Tenshin, he finally answers her question by saying that maybe the Zammed wants to live alongside other people and asks for Nakayami and the Zambani crew's help. The hag then title drops the anime out of nowhere before tasking Akiyuki to meditate on his answer. Tenshin then tells Nakayami to remove the restraint and entrusts her to take care of Akiyuki. At the same time, Bazooka Mommy gets drunk and feels bad for slapping Nakayami. Elsewhere, when Russo comes back from buying groceries, he finds Tsukaki sitting outside his home waiting for him. She then goes up to him and tells him that the Free Zone HQ is installing an anti-human form research lab on Sentin Island and would like to use his expertise. Russo tells Tsukaki that he hates soldiers and that she should inform her master of the same. Seeing how her plan didn't work, she tells him that she is here on behalf of Kakesu Tajiro, the man whose life he saved in Berador, which shocks him. In Condorel, the children that Sonova sent goes up to a dead pregnant woman and extract the Haruko from her, which is sucked into their staffs. But as they try to head back, a human form user recognizes the children as the ones who extract Haruko from the deceased known as the Jibashiri but gets shot by a Free Zone soldier. Sentin Island's commandant reports to Tajiro about the transfer of anti-soul power exoskeletons, also known as ASP suits, to the Sentin Island Free Zone HQ. Tajiro then decides to change the name of the Sentin Island Free Zone HQ to Far East Autonomy since it's too lame. Shirata slowly loses her mind due to the death of her family while she stares at Tajiro from the fenced-off military dock. Akaduki is offering his service as a scrivener to the locals. Akashiba boasts about his bullet-like running speed as if he's the embodiment of Lightning McQueen. While writing the letters, Akiyuki notices how all of them are addressed to the northern government and mentions them to Akashiba, who tries to compare the northern government to the people from Tessek village, whom the Zambani crew also considers as enemies. While calling Ishu for dinner, Aum mentions how Nakayami is still in her room. Ishu tells him how they stopped here with the Tesseks for her sake so she could talk to them, so let her do what she wants. Aum asks her what the crew will do if Nakayami decides to return to Tessek with Zagend and his crew, to which she replies that it's up to Nakayami to decide whether she wants to stay or leave. At Sentin Island, Haru and Furuichi help out the military with cleaning the mess from the air raid. She gets really worried about Akiyuki, telling Furuichi she wished she could see everyone from their class again. Tajiro asks Tsukaki if she passed on his message to Russo. She replies that she informed him of the time and place, but he's still late by 40 minutes. Meanwhile, Dr. Kanba knocks at the door and informs that the first applicant of his own dream has finally appeared. While Akiyuki is still hard at work, Nakayami gets out to her room and informs him that she's going to Zeigen's ship for a little while, telling him to continue his training while she is gone. Inside Zeigen's ship, a small, pink creature called an Ongoro runs around, evading two men who are searching for it. The Ongoro takes a liking to Nakayami, and Zeigen finally shows up and greets Nakayami, who is glad to meet him. Everyone eats dinner at the dinner table when Kobako, Hinokimaru, and Akiyuki show their concern for Nakayami, thinking if she is going to leave the crew, while Nakayami is busy eating dinner with Zeigen on his ship. Zeigen tells Nakayami about her picking up something interesting at Sentin Island, just like the Ruikan scriptures. She agrees and asks him if Sonova is still alive. Zeigen tells her that he and his people believe that she survived since some people have even seen her. He also informs her that the one controlling Tessik village right now is the son named Kujairika, who plans to retake the Holy Land, saying that it will be a suicide for their people. That's why Zeigen advises Nakayami to return to her homeland, to Tessik village, and recommends that she be the village chief before offering her a 30-year-old, high-purity Utitu seed. Akashiba finishes loading all the mail into the mail collection truck. Just as the truck leaves, Akiyuki remembers how he forgot to give his own letter to the collection truck that he wrote to Haru and asks Akashiba to deliver it to the truck for him. Akashiba initially declines, but when Akiyuki threatens to tell everyone about the lewd pin-up picture of Nakayami in his room, Akashiba finally agrees and runs off at full speed after the truck, finally proving the story he told him about his speed. In the Free Zone research facility, Dr. Kanba shows Tajiro a Haruko sample from the giant Zammed in the lab being transferred to Shirada's body. Earlier, Shirada was the one whom Kanba was referring to as the first applicant. This angers Tajiro, and he throws Kanba off his wheelchair. But Kanba just tells Tajiro that both of them are already going down in history as war criminals. That's why they should do everything to stop the war. Tajiro doesn't say anything, and he just exits the room. After Akiyuki is finally done with work, he runs into Ishu, who tells him that they might lose a member that day. She starts telling him that Nakayami can hear the voices of human forms. She also tells him about the origins of Nakayami's name since it's not her real name and was given to her by Ishu. Nakayami would cry a lot, so Ishu would tell her, Nakayame, meaning don't cry. The people around Nakayami misheard her and started calling her Nakayami, which became her name. Later, Zeigen calls Ishu, showing her that he has captured Nakayami. Zeigen thanks Ishu for taking good care of Nakayami and tells her that she doesn't belong on the Zambani. He also tells Ishu that he'll be heading north and that Nakayami will be going to Tessik village. Zeigen's man unhands Nakayami, and Zeigen tells Nakayami that she should not come back to him again, telling her to get out of here. But before parting ways, Zeigen tells Ishu to not forget because someday her beloved Nakayami will leave her. And he throws Nakayami the Utitu seed he offered her before. Nakayami goes back to her room and cries in her bed, and Akiyuki tells her to make up with Ishu as soon as possible, because it will be harder with time, as he has seen his parents as an example. Meanwhile, Furuichi thinks about taking the army's main soul exam so that he can pilot asp suits to fight against the human form weapons. He discusses this with Haru, who is walking beside him. The two of them reach a dead end and decide to make a detour, where they find Shirada sitting on the road. Haru goes over to Shirada to make sure she's doing okay, but Shirada bursts into tears and transforms into a human form. The human form immediately attacks Haru and begins chasing after Furuichi, only ignoring everything else. A military truck arrives and deploys two asp suits, which cause significant damage to the human form. Tajiro also happens to be in the military truck and goes after the human form and deals the finishing blow to it with his gun. At the same time, Akashiba comes back after successfully sending Akiyuki's letter to the mail collection truck, and the Zambani takes off for its next destination, to a place called Hanusa. While on the Zambani's bridge, Ishu finds a letter from Nakayami that has a singular sunflower taped to a paper. Ishu realizes that she has probably got this idea from Akiyuki, but is not surprised to see Nakayami express her emotions this way since she can't write. Furuichi gets trained by Tsukaki on how to pilot an asp suit. Furuichi has some trouble controlling the arms initially, but after getting some advice from Tsukaki, who was a veteran asp pilot, Furuichi gets the hang of it. Haru also joins the asp suit training along with Furuichi and is very eager to save Akiyuki. Tsukaki informs Tajiro that the candidates who do well in the upcoming live test will join the field training session at Sumabara Pass later on. She also tells Tajiro that the boy and girl who practice martial arts Furuichi and Haru are the classmates of Ruso's son. While observing the Zammed in the research facility, Tajiro tells Tsukaki that he doesn't like her hairstyle because it reminds him of his dead mother. While flying to their destination, Aum spots some black smoke in the distance and alerts Ishu, who orders Nakayami to go check out the cause of the smoke and tells Akiyuki to tag along with her. But Nakayami leaves without him, saying that he'd get in her way. Ishu tells Akiyuki that she wants him to get in Nakayami's way, so Akashiba does the sensible thing and pushes Akiyuki off the Zambani like any sane person would do. And by some miracle, Akiyuki manages to land on Nakayami's beat kayak. Nakayami then speeds up and quickly heads to where the smoke is. Upon arriving, the two of them find some broken wind turbines and a few dead human forms, but among them, Nakayami manages to find a living human form as well by listening to its voice. The living human form was only partially turned into stone, mainly its lower body. Nakayami runs to the human form and shoots it in a way that stones start forming in a circular pattern on it. Nakayami doesn't try to kill the human form, but rather tries to dismantle it, but she gets caught up in the red stones forming on the human form's body and gets stuck. Seeing this, Akanuki tries to save Nakayami, but is unable to do anything until the human form cuts off the binding on Akiyuki's right arm while attacking him, which enables Akanuki to use his Zammed powers to fight against the human form. Only Akiyuki's right arm transforms, and he frees Nakayami from the rocks. Just as Akiyuki delivers the finishing blow, Nakayami tells him not to kill the human form since she wanted to dismantle it, but it's too late. As she helps seal his power, she tells Akiyuki she is disappointed with him because he has forgotten what he said about living alongside with others when he was giving his answer to Madame Tension because he should have counted human forms in his others as well. In the research facility, the stones around the Zammed start breaking off. While on a bus, Haru and Furuichi talk about joining the army. Haru tells Furuichi how she has no idea when the lockdown on civilian ships will be lifted, so that's why she decided to join the army to get off the island and learn what had happened to Akiyuki. When Haru gets off the bus, Furuichi almost confesses to her, but chickens out telling that he will treat her if she passed the hostile exam. Later, she finally got the letter from Akiyuki. She reads the letter he wrote for her. In the letter, he asks if his friends and family are doing all right and requests Haru to look after his hopeless parents. He also promises to return to Sentin Island, though not able to confirm when. After reading the letter, Haru stops by a letterbox and inserts all the letters she had written for Akiyuki inside it. While on the Zambani, Akiyuki asks Akashiba if the human forms are their enemies and tells him about how Nakayami wanted to dismantle one instead of killing it. Akashiba reveals how human forms are initially living beings, but the northern government creates their own Haruko and injects them into living beings, transforming them into rudimentary weapons. Knowing this, Akiyuki feels bad realizing his mistake, while Nakami's Ongoro tries to cheer her up when she's in her room sad that she couldn't dismantle the human form earlier. Elsewhere, Russo is working on some research when he hears a knock on his window. He slides open the window and finds Haru standing outside. He invites her inside, but Fusa, who is with Haru, tells Russo to come out. Haru tells Russo how Akiyuki is still alive, but his whereabouts are unknown. She then leaves Fusa and Russo alone and heads home. As they sit together, Fusa mentions how some army woman came to her, but she didn't say anything to her. Just as Fusa is about to leave, Ityuzo starts telling her about the Battle of Berador 17 years ago and how he was a military doctor for the northern government. He mentions how he used to work as a doctor to prolong the lives of soldiers, but the ones that were unable to fight were used as guinea pigs to create human form weapons. He unknowingly took part in that experiment, and he tells her that she may hate him for this, but he thinks that this is karma for what is happening to their son. During the training of the new AS pilots, the Zammed inside the research facility, which the members of the facility refer to as the test-type Zammed, breaks free from the red stones and destroys the chains binding it. Just as the training begins, an emergency alarm goes off, causing everyone to get confused. Tajiro arrives at the scene, and Kamba explains to him how the test-type Zammed has woken up. The Zammed tries to escape the facility, but Tajiro gives orders to close the barrier walls so the Zammed can't escape. The Zammed breaks through the first barrier, but gets its leg stuck in the second barrier. Seeing how the Zammed also breaks through the second barrier, Tajiro gives orders to close the third barrier as well, which stops the Zammed. The test-type Zammed releases some kind of steam from its body, and the baby Zammed hanging from its belly uses its ability to create some sort of harmless-looking bubble. Just as the bubble touches the wall of the third barrier, it explodes and opens a clear path all the way up to the surface. After the explosion, some yellow beams hit the training ASP suits, which causes them to shut down, leaving only Haru and Furuichi as the only active pilots at the moment. The situation becomes dire when the rogue Zammed appears before two ASP pilots with little combat experience.